May 3rd, 1961. Harpo stopped by the Today Show studio to do anything but talk about his autobiography, Harpo Speaks. While guest host John Daly and co-hosts tried their best to focus on the book, Harpo did his best to fool around.
We heaved. We heaved everything we could get our hands on into the officer's pit. Hats, truck, razors, stiletto, The piano player surrendered. I think it was to Stonewall Jackson. Climbed up on the stage, sat on one of the school desks, and joined the act. It was Chico. I don't remember much about the rest of the performance. It can't be that cold in here. Except that Chico ad-libbed an hilarious part as an Italian boy, and the fiddle player in the orchestra warmed up. The fiddle player in the orchestra nearly stopped the show. The fiddle player was a local kid named Benny Kubelski, right? Benny Kubelski. Until this day, when as Jack Benny, now he's known as Waukegan's first citizen, he still can't look at any one of the Marx Brothers without breaking up. Right? Well, no. Look, we've got a harp here, Harpo, and will you play something for us right after a station break? This is Today on NBC. Well, now, Harpo, before you play for us, how long have you been playing the harp? 3 years? 10 years. Well, will you take all 10 of those fingers over and play the harp for us, please? I must say it's the most varied breakfast in the United States this morning.
Skull.
Skull.
No, thank you. It's too early in the morning.
It's a little more, right, oh, bullseye, bullseye, oh, no question, absolute bullseye. It's a little more dangerous here than it is on the firing line, isn't it? You're looking splendid this morning. You played the harp beautifully. Oh, yeah, it's all think, I know that. Well, Harpo, I know you have many and varied interests, and the harp is only one of them. And Harpo, I said you have many and varied interests, and the harp is only... Harpo? Oh, no.
Thank you, Harpo.
One new arm, please. Oh, golly, you were just wonderful, and may I say...
They are too
Oh,
much.
dear. This is a wonderful way to start a day, Harpo. Would you give our best regards to Groucho? You know, it's a wonderful family, really. Harpo never says anything, and yet can start a day this early with all of us now in wonderful good humor and laughing. And Chico has, in his own particular way, does the same thing. And Zeppo does exactly the same thing. And Gummo, each in his own way. Fine, that's, you know, that's beautiful. Use the Parma method. That's very nice indeed. But Groucho used to come to New York once in a while, and we had a mutual friend, and we would sit in Toots Shores. You remember, Jack. And you can't eat a meal with Groucho any more than you can sit without breaking up with laughter with Harpo, because you never know what he's going to say next. But when I finally got, so I used to take my own sandwich. I was paying for these expensive meals and never getting a chance to eat them. This is a book which we recommend, needless to say. It's full of good fun, as Harpo is. But it's particularly, I think, worthwhile because you seem to have almost total recall. There are wonderful stories about the Algonquin circle. Well, there's one I marked in here that just tickled me. Do you mind if I do a little bit of reading? It says, one night I brought around a copy of Shouts and Murmurs for Alexander Wolcott to autograph. Alex signed the book, handling it with loving tenderness, and then sighed and said, what is so rare as a Wolcott first edition? A Wolcott second edition, said Franklin. But it's full of that wonderful kind of fun, and I know that we'll enjoy finishing reading it as much as we've enjoyed having you here with us, Harpo. Thanks muchly for joining us so early in the day.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
November 8th, 1963. On this appearance on Today, Groucho livened up the morning for host Hugh Downs. Audacious as always, Groucho demonstrated a duck walk and fondly reminisced about auditioning a young Marilyn Monroe.
We're in imminent danger of mental derailment here talking to Groucho Marx. He has that effect on people.
Really?
And
I regard myself as a very simple man.
Pat started...
Homegrown.
You're not a simple man, Groucho.
No.
Pat started to ask him a question. I said, whatever it is...
Which one is Pat of you three?
Huh? On the left.
On the left? Oh.
I could save it to
Pat, you're charming. You got
Thank you.
beautiful
what do you want?
teeth.
Now ask him your question, Pat.
I kind of wish I hadn't even brought it up.
Well?
Groucho, how did you get that funny, kooky walk of yours, she said?
Well, I'll tell you. I'll show you my walk if you show me your wiggle.
The setup thing. I don't wiggle.
You don't?
I just...
Well, there's no point in walking if you don't wiggle. But I can tell you a story about that. You want to walk?
Not particularly. I'd much rather hear your story.
Yeah, what's the story?
I'd rather see you walk.
What'd you walk?
Well, go on.
Were you sure how you developed your
Well, I want to see his walk. It's got to be fair. And I'll cheat. I'll walk straight out of camera range.
Pretty straightforward walk.
Yes. Nice pair of legs, too. Are those yours, Pat?
Can't help it. Look out for that microphone.
Did you walk already?
Yeah, I walked.
No, you're supposed to walk in front of me. Otherwise, I have no inspiration to walk.
How do we walk?
Just come over and stand in front of me and walk.
If you think I'm scared of this whole bit, you're absolutely right.
Why? I think you're the essence
A
of
man
dignity.
who describes himself as
Kiss
being
me, you
dignified
fool.
and writes memoirs of a mangy lover are worried.
Come on.
Now, what do we do?
Now, walk right over there.
I walk. Oh, I wish I were dead or any place else or something.
That's a dirty trick. I
Now,
didn't know
there,
you
I
had any
asked the
track
question, and
here.
I still don't know.
You only have so much
You did a
rope.
great job.
How did you start here, though?
Oh, let's talk not about me, huh? Let's talk about Marilyn Monroe, huh?
I'd rather talk about mangy lovers. Where'd you get that silly title?
I don't think it's very accurate, I think. The girls asked me this yesterday. What does mangy mean? Well,
The mange is a disease.
a dog.
Kind of,
A dog gets mange. And it's the dog and the mangy. No, that's not quite true. That's as close as I can come to it, unless I give it a lot of thought. But I want to tell you about Marilyn Monroe. When we did one picture in which she had a bit, she got $100 for one day's work. You can imagine how long ago this was. And Lester Cowan, who was producing the picture, he called me up because I was going to do the scene with Marilyn. He called me up, and he said, we should come over to the studio tomorrow to my office because we're going to try out 3 girls with a part in this picture. I think it was called Love Happy or something. A terrible picture. So I sat there with Lester, and the 3 girls were there. I was introduced to them. And he says, now the first girl, walk. And she walked across from one end to the other. I says, very nice. He says, now the second girl, walk. And she did it, too. And then the third one. He says, now you walk across. And he says, well, which one do you like the best? I says, you're kidding, aren't you? Now, how can you take anybody except that last girl? Well, the whole room revolved when she walked. And it was Marilyn Monroe. And she got $100. And then we quit shooting at 5, and she got $25 extra for going to a couple of gas stations. They were plugging some kind of gas or something, which was part of the picture or something. And she got $25 extra for, they took snapshots of her from 6 to 8 o'clock. She was a wonderful girl, really. Very nice girl.
I had no idea she started with you, Groucho, and did her first part in a Marx Brothers picture.
That was her first picture. It was almost our last.
What is this?
Had you seen the picture?
Don't you feel that you maligned your brothers a little bit by saying that Harpo and Chico were card sharks?
Well, they were.
They
I
really
could tell you a story about them that isn't in the book.
Really?
A wonderful story. We used to live in Chicago. We got time?
Let me see how many seconds we've got here, because
Oh,
you may
not
have to
again.
tell it a
15
little bit
seconds.
later in the program. No, we chop things up considerably here, Groucho.
It's like a Chinese
Because-
restaurant.
We're jealous, because if you get going good, you know, we like to bring in a commercial or something. No, the clock is inexorable. And I'll look up what that means
Yeah.
right after we have a station break.
Benny used that once, and I asked him what it meant, and he didn't know.
July 17th, 1985. Today's Gene Shalit sat down with Harpo's son William upon the reissue of the autobiography Harpo Speaks. And not only did William talk about how Harpo actually spoke, but he brought along home movies.
Harpo Marx was the silent Marx brother, whom critic Alexander Woollcott called the funniest man I ever saw on the stage. A honking horn, funny facial expressions, and physical gestures were the ways Harpo communicated, but he could be funnier and more eloquent than the noisiest comedian. Here's an example, a brief one, of course, with brothers Chico and Groucho from their classic film Duck Soup. That was the public Harpo Marx, but there was also a private side to the man born Adolph Marx on East 93rd Street, New York City in the year 1893. Joining me this morning is Bill Marx, the eldest of Harpo's 4 children. The occasion is the new edition of Harpo Marx's autobiography called, appropriately, Harpo Speaks, written 3 years before Harpo's death in 1964. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Gene.
I have never heard, and most people have never heard, Harpo's speech. What did he sound like? Can you describe that?
Well, he had a very soft-spoken way. He would say words like turkey would come out turkey, hamburger, liver waste. Oil became Earl.
He was a New Yorker, all right.
You bet.
Was he funny at home?
He was a wonderfully magical man at home. He did wonderful things as a mature, intelligent person, and he was also a child. He would bring back his childhood by sitting in front of the television set every afternoon, Monday through Friday, at 5:15, watching his favorite television show of all time, which was a show called Time for Beanie. It was a hand puppet show. And his favorite character, probably ever, was Cecil the Seasick Sea Serpent.
He was very good at taking home movies. We have a lot of home movies that you have very graciously provided to us. While we look at them, you can speak and tell us what we're seeing. There he is without his wig.
Well, he's up in Vancouver on a fishing trip, and there he's in England working with a young lady who worked the British vaudeville circuit with him. There's Susan, his wife, and my wonderful mother, and And Alexander Woollcott was
Look
in
at
that
that
picture.
strut.
Now that's something, isn't it?
Now, who's that?
That's Groucho.
Of course. A young Groucho.
Picking up Billy.
Did you call him Julius or did you call him Groucho?
Uncle Groucho.
Did you really?
Yep, and there's Harpo in the background. Now, I don't know who that is.
That's El Dorgo.
Yeah.
Did you call him Groucho and Chico, or did you call him Leonard and
We
Julius?
called him Uncle Groucho.
Uncle
Uncle
Groucho.
Chico, yeah.
What were they like around the house?
They weren't around very often. They usually all convened at Hillcrest Country Club in Los Angeles. That's where they had their social life as they grew to have family, you see. And so they spent no time at anybody else's house. They got sick of each other by the time the day ended at Hillcrest.
Well, if this were written on the side of a book, they would call it a blur, but I have to say something. We get a lot of books on this program. Harpo Speaks is an extraordinary book because it is so funny and because it is an evocation of an era that is absolutely gone. The 1920s and 30s and 40s of movies in Hollywood, it is all in that book. And in conclusion, which should make you laugh.
That was his favorite expression.
That was his favorite expression.
Come down to breakfast in the morning, the first thing out of his mouth was, "And in conclusion."
Roland Barber wrote it, Limelight Editions printed, and I don't mind giving it all of that because Harpo Speaks is a wonderful, joyous book. Thanks very much for being with us and for giving us those whole movies.
My pleasure.